Want to take a special moment to thank one of the guys that makes this show possible. Good friend of mine, Brad Van Meter, and his team down at State Farm. And I just got my renewal in the mail the other day. It's time for a lot of people to regroup for the year 2025 right around the corner and make sure you are getting the best coverage on auto, renters, homeowners, boat, motorcycle, whatever the case. You need good insurance, folks, and you need an agent and a team who will make sure you're getting good coverage and make sure that you're getting the best price, the best rate for you and your family. Call Brad Van Meter and his team down at State Farm. Let them know that Cory Brada over here from the Hawkeye of the Storm sent you. www.bradvanmeter.com. You can also visit him in person down at 4229 Fleur Drive in Des Moines, or call him at 515-256-6480. That's 515-256-6480. Well, here we are. And I got one thing to say as Mr. Kyle Spence and I are hitting the airways following Iowa's 76-66 win over Wazoo on this Friday night. And I got one thing to say to you, Kyle. All is well, ends well with Drew Thelwell. And the Hawkeyes with a 10-point victory, in part due to the transfer productions of both Seydou Traore and Drew Thelwell. I know that's going to be the hot topic this evening, given the fact that those are the guys that Fran rode down the stretch. Drew Thelwell had a couple of really big threes down the stretch. I know you and I were kind of conversing back and forth during the game. There's so much to get to. This is in all caps. Usually, if people follow the show, you know that I put the score in all caps, the headline in all caps, if I view it as sort of a big win or a big loss. I view this as a big win, right? First big game, first actual game against a real Power 4 team. We don't know a ton about Wazoo, very much like we don't know a ton about Virginia Tech on the women's side. But we were able to say after that game last Sunday, hey, good win, really solid win on neutral court. Different circumstances tonight, Kyle. But might I say, good win, regardless of what Wazoo ends up being. I think it's a good win, but I also will say there's a little asterisk next to that statement. This is a loss they could not have. Now, it's not that had they lost, I'm not saying they would have been out of the tournament conversation. It's November 15th. But I'm simply saying this is a neutral court game with a home crowd against a first-year head coach with a bunch of transfers on the other side. Again, not saying Wazoo won't be good, but on paper, Iowa should have won this game. They did win this game. It was a battle, and an exciting battle down in Moline. Just your thoughts right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to give my quick synopsis, it would be one word: few. That was, I mean, we're happy we walked away with the win. I'm very happy I have Drew Thelwell on my side. He is a welcome sight and a welcome type of player to watch on Iowa basketball that we have not seen in a while, with maybe the exception of flashes of Joe Toussaint, I would say. His play style, his competitiveness, Seydou Traore the same way. We were, like you said, going back and forth during the duration of the game, and those two players stick out so much for their athleticism relative to everyone else on the court that wears black and gold. So I'm really happy about those two. But man, this was ugly. We're going to talk about the coaching and the schematics of this game.
Super friend. Super friend. Let's talk about the coaching. I made sure, because I'm going to say some strong things about the coaching.
It was horrible. It was horrible today. They did not look. Well, I mean, they were. Yeah. Well, we'll get into detail about it, but yeah, I mean, I'm happy they survived this game. Obviously, I've got their schedule up in front of me here. They don't have a ton of opportunities. They really just have Iowa State now, and I guess Utah State for non-conference wins, and Utah later on. Yep. So they've got those games. You just can't afford to drop these, because then you're left having to pick up 6, 7, 8 quality wins during conference play, and the odds of you doing that are just not very good. So big win for the resume. Probably goes down at the end. I mean, we don't know anything about Wazoo yet, like you said, but probably goes down as a quad 2 win, I would guess, right? Somewhere in that range at the end of the season. So it's better than a quad 2 loss. I mean, I'm hoping it's a quad 2 win. I mean, we had neutral 51 to 100 is neutral quad 2. So we're hoping it's a quad 2 win, and we'll see what we learn about Wazoo as they play out the season.
Let me give a quick shout out to Tony. Tony, if you're out there, he's not in the StreamYard queue. So Tony, if you're out there, our big super fan, Tony up in South Dakota area, give us a call. I want to ask him about analytics, because he's kind of my numbers guy, and you are, quite frankly, too. But as it relates to like basketball,
yeah, he's super basketball nerdy, and I appreciate it.
I have a couple things that I just don't have the answer to, and I'm fine with admitting that. Is there significance here, Kyle? Maybe you know, or maybe Doug. I see Doug. Doug, you're on camera, so if I know we don't have you on the screen yet, but I can see your face. Yeah, I want to know if there's significance in Iowa winning this game by 10 as opposed to 9. Is there significance in the double-digit win? He's giving me a thumbs up. So we're going to get Doug in here in a second. He'll explain that. But I did think about that at the very end of the game. So just let me give a few overarching thoughts before we really get into this thing. And this is really the first time I feel like I've hosted an Iowa men's basketball postgame show this year, because I really don't know that we learned much of anything through the first 3 games. I do think it was really important that they, and I mentioned it on Tuesday, they got Seydou back from injury before tonight. So he was, they rode him down the stretch. And this is what I'll say. I texted you and I made a comment about how I was going to say some pretty strong things about Fran, and not about Fran personally as a coach, but I will, a little bit of a caveat there. I texted you maybe midway through the second half. Let me applaud Fran on something first. Fran stuck with Drew Thelwell and Seydou Traore.
The one redeeming thing he did all game was he did not yank Traore and Thelwell out of the game. That was the one redeeming thing at the end.
There were moments in that second half where it was like, like
Until those last 3 or 4 minutes, there were moments he could have yanked either of them.
Yeah, absolutely. But they were where they were, I felt like, because of the contributions of that whole lineup. And this was a night, in spite of 18 from Peyton Sandfort, in which he really struggled. 2 of 10 from 3, 6 rebounds. Drew Thelwell, you see in the bottom ticker, 7 points, 3 assists, 3 rebounds, 3 steals. Owen Freeman really was the most consistent threat inside, and I tweeted that midway through that first half. If he's not on the floor, they're very one-dimensional. And we've said that. Like I said that from the get-go. I mentioned it to Gary Close in our season preview. I had fears heading into the season, and I'm sure I'm not the inventor of this thought, this theory, that this team is very dependent on the three-point shot when he's not on the floor. And that's why I was so critical. Well, I guess we can start there. So first half, Iowa's neck and neck with Wazoo. Both teams are turning the ball over at an extremely high rate. Ugly basketball in that first half.
Ugly.
The Iowa defense was bad in the first half, but both teams were coughing it up, and a lot of those were unforced errors, as they would say in the sport of tennis, unforced turnovers. And Peyton Sandfort struggled early, struggled late, frankly, and I made some big free throws down the stretch. But in that first half, Iowa was up 19-17 after a putback dunk by Owen Freeman. And I know this is going to be somewhat, and you have a different opinion on this than I do, I know. But I know this is going to be somewhat controversial, but it was the right call by the officials to tee Owen Freeman up in that moment. And I'll explain why. First of all, the rules are different than they are in the NBA. We all know that. It was brought up during the broadcast, and this was a Big Ten crew, one of the two commentators being Jess Settles, who will admit through and through he's a huge Hawkeye homer. So that just we'll start with that. But Owen Freeman has already got a foul in that first half. Fran's motto as it relates to the first half 2-foul rule, which I don't agree with, by the way, especially with Owen at this point, with this team. I think he's got to look at that, maybe more than any other team in his Iowa history, frankly. Even the teams with Luka Garza, I felt like they were better equipped to deal with Luka Garza on the bench. This team is not equipped to deal with Owen Freeman on the bench, but I guess that's a discussion we can have at a different time. But Owen Freeman puts that dunk back and immediately does this, which is fine. There's no issue with that. But then he's yelling and facing, well, I don't know what he said, but right, he's yelling and facing the guy that he posterized. You're just asking for a tee, Kyle. And I understand emotions are high. He didn't play last game. He's back. He's in his hometown. You can't have that because it's a second personal foul, and he was done. He didn't play the last 8-9 minutes of the first half. That could have killed them in a game against a team that they had to have. Yeah. And credit to Iowa for defending enough to stem the tide there and deal with life without him. But those are the types of things that I'm like, as I'm watching, I'm thinking, this is exactly my fear for this entire year, is when stupid things, and the first foul was not good either. It was not down low in the post. And I don't even know. I can check the numbers. Did Owen Freeman end up with another foul in the game? I don't know that he did. Let's see here.
No, maybe one more at most.
No, he did not. He had no other fouls.
More fouls, yeah.
Hindsight's 20/20, but there's another thing you can look at and say, why are you benching a guy for 8 minutes in the first half? Again, you don't know that he's not going to foul in the second, but he's so important to this team, and you can look at it both ways. But anyways, I thought it was a good call by the officials. And Kyle, the officials miss calls both ways. And so I know there are people crying about officiating on the Iowa side on social media in that first
half. Yeah. It was not hugely biased one way or another.
There was a massive pivot foot slide by Peyton Sandfort in that. It was just egregious, like right in front of the Wazoo bench.
I thought Brock Harding had a couple too. Like they called the one in the second half, but he had 2 or 3 that were like, man.
And Brock Harding, we can get to Brock. Brock, when he gets into the lane right now, first of all, he struggles to finish. Part of it's his size. Part of it is I think he lacks confidence because he struggled to finish. So that's just compounding. And then now what he's doing now is he's driving hard, which you want your point guard to drive hard. But then he's doing the old Joe Toussaint where you drive hard and then you're not in control of yourself and you're just bound to travel.
Yep.
You're bound to travel. And he got away with several of them tonight. But those are my first couple of things. I thought the officiating was actually fair tonight. I thought there were some really egregious calls.
Can I just say, too, on the Owen Freeman putback, you are correct. By the letter of the law, it is a technical foul. They should have called it. The only comment I'm making to you is I wish that wasn't a technical foul.
Sure.
That's my only thing. For how I like to watch the game, I would like to see Owen make a gesture and say, I mean, I don't think Owen's, I mean, I don't know him super well personally. I've heard plenty of things about him from people that do. I don't think he's the type of guy to go shout something super obscene at a guy. I don't know what he said after that. Maybe somebody can say in the chat, do some lip reading for us, but I don't think he's shouting anything super obscene there. I'd like to see him get away with the gesture and whatever he said, and then let somebody go back at him and see if we can. I mean, it's entertaining, right? As long as it's not getting nasty, as long as it's not getting physical. But I understand at the same time, number one, by the letter of the law, it is a technical, and also on Owen's end, you can't put your team in that position, especially when you know that you're so important, because he is, even at his young age, he is incredibly important to this team and will be the entire season.
Fran basically went to Evan Braun's early and never went back to him. And you saw Evan Braun struggle, a little bit of a hesitation there on one. I don't know if it was a pass from Brock Harding in that first half when he came in to spell time for Owen, and Evan kicked it back out and then got the ball back in a good position and went up with one hand instead of two. And I remember I voiced it. I'm like, go up with two hands and dunk the ball, or at least show like you're going to dunk, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing. I think he lacks confidence on the offensive end, and understandably so. But I do. I believe that they're going to be very one-dimensional. Now, the X factor in all of this, I think you and I would agree on this, Kyle. The X factor in all of this is having more athleticism on the court in Traore and Thelwell. So when that happens, the thought process may be in the average fan, like, how are you going to deal with the size loss of Freeman and make up for that scoring? I'm thinking more so like, okay, you've lost that. First of all, you're not going to win that. You're not going to win that battle inside anymore because you just don't have the horse to make up for losing Owen Freeman in the game. But
if you're not going to get inside with size and power, you're going to get inside with speed and athleticism. That's how you're going to get inside. You're not going to have anybody to pump the ball into, but Thelwell can drive to the basket.
And can you up the ante on the other end?
Yes.
With guys like Thelwell and with Seydu, and I don't want to rip on the Sanfords, but I think we saw tonight there've been some things said in the first few games on the television broadcast, etc., about how Price was an underrated. And I know Fran has said it during press conferences that Price was a really underrated defender in high school. And I'm not debating that. I mean, he's long. He's got some traits that, you can't teach, height and length. But I'm just telling you right now, you and I both know this, Kyle, that Peyton and Price, and I'd say Brock, are going to struggle staying in front of and not getting physically beat in the post. And that's that combination of defensive liabilities or struggles, that's going to hurt you in an athletic, physical Big Ten. And even though Wazoo's not a Big Ten team, right? They're same gist, right? So I think we saw a little bit of that tonight at times. And then when Peyton's struggling from three, it's very frustrating for the average fan. But at the same time, he's capable of hitting big shots. He made some big free throws down the stretch, and he still put in 18 points, second leading scorer behind Owen Freeman. So lots to get to. And I know we got a couple of people who want to chat here on the phone line. So let's go ahead and add our first caller in. Let's add Doug to the mix. Doug.
Hey, how you guys
doing? Doug, how we doing?
Good game. I mean, it was what it was, and I had a lot of fun. We went to the game on Tuesday, got back at 1, but we know that's what's going to happen when they have an 8 o'clock game, and we live in central Iowa. I said they had to win 2 out of the 3 neutral site games because, to get those, they'll probably be quad 2, somewhere in the 50s to 100, I would imagine, on neutral site.
Tell me what the difference. Tell people that don't follow the sport as closely as you do. Tell me the difference between winning this game by 9 and winning this game by 10.
Well, not that much, but it just adds to their net rating and adds, to their overall,
Right. So what you're saying, Doug, is there's no big differential between 9 and 10. The way that they're like, the differential between 9 and 10 is no different between 8 and 9, right? It's just
I don't think so.
Every point adds on to their net rating because that's my impression. That there's no there's no difference.
My understanding was different. And again, I'm not a junkie like you and Tony are, But my understanding was there was a difference between a double-digit win and a single-digit win. So I could be totally off on that. Kyle, you Google. Go ahead.
It caps off at 10 points. So the net caps off at 10 points now.
Okay, that's just then. Okay.
So
so they maximize their
net benefit from the game.
Sure.
Yeah. So if they would have won by 20, it's no different. They did that, I think, last year or the year before. I could be wrong. Yeah, Tony or James or one of them might know better than me. But yeah,
I think that sounds right. Now that you said it the way you did, so they maximized their ability to take advantage of the net system. That's basically what they did.
Yeah.
I mean by 10 instead of 9.
That's what I'm saying.
But it is something.
Yeah. It has offensive efficiency, defensive efficiency. All those things go into the net rating, not just who you beat and when you beat them, but those other, I don't know, like numbers go in there too. Analytics go in there, I guess, too. And so,
Doug, you're a huge Iowa basketball fan. So sometimes my criticisms, I'm kind of intrigued to hear how diehards like you respond to criticisms from someone like me. When you hear me say that Sanford and Sanford are both going to be below average defenders in the Big Ten, that doesn't shock you, right?
No, it doesn't get me upset. It doesn't shock me. I mean, I think the amount they talk about James Dix being a great defender shocks me sometimes. I mean, he talks about Josh Dix being like a great Big Ten defender. I think, he's good, but he's not great by any means.
No, it's very much. You know what that is? That's very much like and I think he's a good defender. Let me just say this, but I think it's very much similar to the conversations we had about Gabby Marshall for 3 or 4 years. She was good relative to what was around her, but it was a bunch of below average defenders with an average defender who is the star defender, who gave very good effort, by the way. And I think Josh Dix does the same thing. Somebody tweeted at me during the game tonight that they thought Josh was moving a little strange. And I don't know if there's any truth to that.
Someone said, and I don't have the live chat up. I thought someone said he got hurt. But I mean, he got dinged up. I don't know.
I see the comment here from Amanda that she says, I missed Dix getting injured. What happened to his wrist? So I don't know. I have not heard back. Let's see if we, I'll admit this. I dropped the ball.
Fran McCaffrey says Josh Dix took a spill in the first half and hurt his wrist, tried to go in the second half and couldn't. Hopefully Josh's injury will be taken care of quickly.
There you go.
Yeah. Josh only had 23 minutes today, and he is one of our big three, but I think Drew and Sadhu have to be put in there too. And they didn't score many points, but they were just so crucial defensively. And Iowa won this game, and you guys probably will argue with me about this. Iowa won this game on the defensive end. Washington State scored 100 points, 91 points, and 90 points in their first 3 games. And Iowa only gave up 66.
Yeah,
I mean, it's Idaho and
they played a whole bunch of nobodies.
Against the likes of Idaho Tech, my mother, and your mother, Doug.
Yeah.
So,
Portland State, Cory. Put some respect on Portland.
That's true.
I get those two mixed up. I thought it was Portland. I don't know which one. Portland State, Portland.
Because they not the Portland that almost knocked off Oregon the other night. That's a different Portland.
Yeah.
Yes, there's 2 Portlands. There's a Portland State and a Portland, and I looked at this season, with these neutral site games and the first 8 games. I really thought they had a chance and still do of going 8-0. I'm going to go to Kansas City next week. I think that could be the toughest of the 3, despite Utah probably being better than Utah State. I just think there won't the people like Tony and the Sioux Falls people will make that just a whole Hawkeye experience, and so I think Utah will have a lot tougher time than Utah State.
I very rarely get to say this on this show. Kudos to that Iowa crowd, man. That Iowa crowd was great. I'm watching.
They were. Yeah.
Did anybody else just watch that and be like,
why can't we get a crowd like that at Carver?
That's not what I was thinking, Kyle. I was thinking, this is so weird. I'm watching a men's game and it's all Iowa fans cheering. It was such a weird feel. And what does that stadium hold? Does anybody know?
About 8 or 9. Yeah. So.
That's hey,
it's okay.
Is there a reason to say maybe play some of those smaller games in Extreme Arena in Iowa City? That's a discussion for another day. But man, if you could get an environment like that, pack 6,000 to 8,000 people in a smaller arena, do it, man.
Yeah.
I will say this.
Fun.
they better never do this for a men's game. It would be the most embarrassing thing if they ever put the curtains down. We went to the game on we went to the game on Tuesday. There was only 4,500 there, and we were in F. We went and sat in FF. We were poor. We sat in FF. That was our section, and we went all the way down. And we were in like row 8 or 9, and there was no one above us for the next 30 rows. And so it was.
No, so real quick, do you think it's a decent idea, at least for the smaller games, to play it in Extreme Arena and see if you can pack it out?
Yes and no. I mean, I think it isn't. It's like Penn State playing at the Palestra or something like that. There's no tradition to it, but I'm
just saying it would create a better environment, Doug. You and I both know that they're not going to get more than 6,000 to 8,000 people at those garbage.
Tuesday, 8 o'clock.
Game against Ryder. Nobody's going to show up to that.
Next Tuesday, no one will be at that game. I'm very curious what the crowd will be like in Kansas City. I know there's a Hawkeye huddle right before the game. I like I said, living in Ames, they all just talk about Kansas City all the time, and the Power Light District, and how great it is to go down there for a Big 12 tournament. I know this will be nothing like that, but I'm hoping that there will be a few hundred Hawkeye fans there. But again, like I said, this was what I thought it was going forward. The next 4 games, I really think they can win all 4. With Ryder, obviously, I think, if that's even close, I'll be shocked. But Utah State and Northwestern at home to start off the conference. And Northwestern, I think, struggled tonight against our old friends, Eastern Illinois. I think that's what they played tonight. I think we still don't know very much, but after the next 4, we'll know a lot more, especially because they'll play a Big Ten game. That's very important. By
the way, just for people or if they're curious, Ryder's, what I'm looking at, 2-1. They got throttled by UCLA by 35. So this is a game Iowa should win by 30, 20 to 30 points. And we will about this team after Tuesday.
Here's an interesting thought for you, Cory. So tonight, reported attendance, and again, how accurate this is, I don't know, but reported attendance 8,500. The first 3 games were between 7,500 and 8,000. So it was essentially the same size of crowd. It was just a completely different atmosphere because of the building. So I like that point.
Yeah. Absolutely. I would love for them to go back to the Casey Center or whatever it's called now down here in Des Moines. It's not Wells Fargo anymore. Be the Casey Center.
It'll always be Wells Fargo.
It'll always be Wells Fargo.
It's called the Casey Center? Okay.
Casey's bought the rights to it. Yep. Casey bought the Wells Fargo naming rights ran out. It's now the Casey Center come next year. But yeah, I would I felt the defense was much improved, obviously, but that's a dumb statement. But that trap with Seydoux and Drew had where he walked, that was pivotal, a very pivotal moment in the game, and I think that's set the tone to what they were doing. Those, and I as everyone said, I'm not going to add much to. I'm going to have other people maybe add more to the lineup and starting rotation. Who starts, like Coach Close said, doesn't really matter as much. But I think the 5 players that were, well, not counting, we want Dix probably in over Price. Those were probably our 5 best players.
Can I ask a question?
Should start.
Can I ask a question, though? Serious question. Oh. And by the way, Coach is planning on being with us at some point very soon. He had this weekend. Arizona's playing Washington, I believe, Wisconsin, right? Arizona, Wisconsin this weekend, and so Gary's
right now, aren't they?
They probably are, because he's tied up with. They're honoring the Final Four, both those Final Four teams. So that's why Gary's not been together with that team and that staff, I don't think, since he retired. So this is a big week for Gary.
Wisconsin's about to blow them out too. It's I got a minute left. It's 103-88. Wisconsin.
Wait a minute. Where is Arizona ranked?
9th.
And Wisconsin's unranked?
Up, yeah, and they're up 15 with a minute to go.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. And Gary brought the smoke on that one.
Yeah,
Gary brought the smoke on that one. All right.
Yeah.
So
very close. I don't know.
So a couple things. Can I just skip to this, Doug? We got James here on hold, and I'm sure if people want to call, they can. 515-635-1601. Again, 515-635-1601. But there are a couple of comments I want to get to. So Lonnie, I'm surprised by this take, frankly. Lonnie says this team is twice as athletic as last year's team. Coach looks more focused without the drama of his kids. Interesting take. I don't know that I agree totally, but I don't know that a second part, I guess I've never really thought of that. I haven't not noticed some increase in attention or focus from Fran. Now, I think maybe what Lonnie's referring to specifically is that lineup that took them to the home stretch is athletic enough. But I think collectively they're less athletic because they lost Tony Perkins, and who else did they lose?
I was going to say they're twice as athletic because last year they had one athletic player and this year they have two.
Well,
Tony Perkins and now Traore and Thelwell.
Yeah, they lost. That's true. That's true.
I don't think there was another player. I mean, besides Tony.
Patrick was athletic.
No.
Patrick was okay.
Patrick was big. If Patrick was 6'3", you wouldn't say he's athletic.
Patrick was more athletic than your average 6'8" dude from Iowa City West. That's not even a fair comparison.
Okay.
I mean, 6'8" dudes.
No, I think Ben Worley.
Yeah, I was going to say, how many of those have there been?
I think Patrick was I think Patrick's. I'm not going to sit here and try to defend Patrick. Patrick, can we just move on from the subject?
Yes,
let's move on from that one. Doug, so Lonnie thinks his team is more athletic. And how about this? Jack says Brock should still start. Now, I'm curious, Doug, when you say it doesn't matter who starts, it matters who plays. That's something Gary has said to some extent. I don't know that he said that verbatim, but I'm curious if the idea was that Drew Thelwell was the better option. What's the point? What's the point of starting Brock? What does that give?
The game was in Moline tonight. That you're going to start Brock tonight, but you're saying game against Ryder. I don't know if he has a.
Wait a minute. So I'm curious. Can I ask a question? Kyle's going to laugh at this one. All the home games are in Iowa City. Why doesn't Evan Bronze start every game? He's from Iowa City.
Because he didn't make a special team.
No, come on. You play the best guys. This is the biggest game on the early season, one of the biggest games in the early season schedule. I'm not saying Brock doesn't deserve to start, but this whole crap about, they were in Moline. Give me a freaking break, man. Are we playing basketball? Or are we playing patty cake in our sister's backyard? This is not seventh grade hoops anymore, Doug.
Yes, you're fine. I agree with your statement. I was just giving an answer why Brock might be started tonight. We'll see what happens against Ryder.
He's going to start Tuesday. He's going to start Tuesday against Ryder.
Did you? I mean, he just blew you off when you asked the question, didn't he? So it's not even close in his mind.
Well, Doug, you watched the interview, and I asked him the question, the press conference. I asked him, what did you think of the response? I'm not criticizing it. Kyle is, but what did you think of the response?
Yeah, you're right. I am.
I watched your Zoom interview with Fran with all of you that lasted 3 minutes, which I've been on here about 10 times longer than the whole Zoom interview. I thought Fran was in one of his moods and just gave you what he gives you. I wasn't upset with Fran. I wasn't upset with the answer. Fran just gave you his one. I'm
not upset with Fran, and I said it right after. I'm like, if he don't want to answer a question, he's just not going to answer it. That's as simple as that.
It's a 4-minute Zoom press conference.
4 minutes. It was less than 4 minutes.
Doug, if you're getting paid $3 million a year to represent Iowa, how many times a year would you be in a mood?
I don't know.
Would it be the 50 times a year that Fran's in a mood?
Well, like I said, I'm not being critical. I'm just saying with the way he answered the question, maybe he'll end up starting Thelwell. But if you're taking him for what he said at face value, Thelwell's nowhere close. And I'm reading into the statement, but no Brock as a starter. The question was, is there thought? Is there even thought? That's what I asked him. Is there even thought of maybe experimenting a little? Nope. Brock's a starter. That was the response. So I think it's fair at this point, even though we're early, to say, is that really fair? Is that take, even though we're not there in practice every day, is it really fair to sit here and say, nope, absolutely
not even close. Not a reasonable question to ask.
I can't imagine a world where you can say that. Have we watched the first 4 games?
Yes.
Yeah.
Drew's done very well. And I'm not the one that makes the rotation, but I look at the last 10 minutes of that game, like all of you guys did, and we definitely felt that the group of guys at the end of that game, maybe other than we wanted Josh to be out there, was the lineup that we should play as much as possible. I don't mind playing 9, 10 guys. We talked about 13. You don't play 13. We were probably down to those 9. Evan might play. I don't know. That doesn't really bother me either way, other than the fact we just after Owen, we just don't have any post player. That's pretty much it. So we'll play 5 out or do different cuts and stuff. I want you to get to James and other people that have maybe more about the stuff about the lineup, but I'm very optimistic. We'll see how the next 4 games go. Like I said, I'm looking forward to going down to Kansas City and seeing the T-Mobile Center and seeing the Basketball Hall of Fame and stuff like that. It's a really cool area. I know that because all of my cycling friends get to boast about going down there. So
one more thing real quick. This is I'll send you off with this, Doug. This is something as you try to fall asleep tonight and you're sitting there thinking about the Hawks. This is something to positive dwell on. They turned the ball over 10 times in the first half, just 3 in the second. So they did struggle with turnovers mightily, as did Wazoo. They cleaned things up in that second half, but I would say who's running the show at point guard, there's I think a trickle-down effect as it relates to turnovers. And
definitely.
Man, I love Drew Thelwell's composure in big moments so far.
Yes.
He's
athletic, but not erratic.
So I have one late one. I'll get off. But do you feel like Peyton he fouled out of the last game, and he only ended up with 3 fouls, but it felt like he had the 2 foul problem too. Do you feel like Peyton is fouling more than last year? He's never really been a great defender, as we've always discussed, but is he hacking down more or something? Have you guys noticed this, or am I just imagining things with his foul issues over the last couple games? Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. Yeah, I don't know about that. I'd have to look. I guess we could look back at the recent box scores. Kyle, you want to pull up some box scores here from the last couple of weeks? I don't know that that's the case. I don't know if it's not the case. I do think.
Yeah, well, he had 3 fouls tonight, 5 against South Dakota and 3 against Southern, and 1 in the opener.
He's playing how many minutes a game? And he's also playing
30. Well, he had 5 fouls in 19 minutes against South Dakota. That's the only one. Besides that game, there's really nothing to worry about.
Yeah, well, bigger sample size. Let's see. If it continues, then sure, but I also said there were points in that second half. I'm not trying to take shots at Peyton. Kyle, there were points in that second half where I verbalized. I said, hey, maybe get Peyton back in the game. Like, he's got 3 fouls. And I know Fran, he's had this 2 foul rule in the first half. And then I don't know what the timeline for him in the second half.
3 fouls before 10 minutes or whatever he has in his life.
I think this team is built in a fashion to where he's going to have to violate those rules that he's held himself to for so many years, but I could be wrong on that. Let's go to Mr. Tom Kert of HawkeyeReport.com, and on 3, Tom.
Hey guys, how are you? Can you hear me okay?
You're loud and clear. And when's the last time you've covered an Iowa Hawkeye basketball game in the town of your residence?
I've never covered a game here. I've been to games. I was at the NIT game against DePaul, and I was at the last Western Illinois game, but I've never covered one. So it's nice to not have to drive a ways after this game.
Well, Tom, before we get to Fran, and we'll get your takeaways here from this win tonight as well, tell me what, for those of us that weren't there, tell us what a basketball game at Vibrant was like, and the media hospitality, all of that. And is this something that you think could continue for years to come?
I think so. I'd like to see him maybe play one game a year over here. It just seemed like the crowd was great. I talking to Fran, kind of walking down the hallway, and I told him it felt like a tournament game. It felt like a Big Ten tournament game or an NCAA game where the fans were just into it and having fun. So it was a really good time and a good. I think they had almost 8,500 fans. So close. I think 98 is like a sellout. So not a bad crowd, and they were into it and having fun. And it was given Carver not having a lot of people, this was pretty nice.
I have to ask you, Tom, because you brought up the arena and the environment. I brought it up at the outset, and this is maybe an aside that we should discuss a different day. I know I'm not the the inventor of this theory or this idea. But I mean, I guess maybe a better question for Beth Getz, but why not schedule the games against Rider, against A&M Commerce, against Southern? Why not schedule those games at Extreme?
They probably have to pay to use that. Is my guess.
The volleyball team don't they use it? Like, aren't they in there a lot?
Yeah, they are. They might have some sort of deal. I'm not sure, but
I mean, it's Extreme Arena and it's MediaCom.
Well, it's also the convenience for the team, that the team is right there and they're used to the locker rooms and everything that's there.
I get it. I just to your point, and I'm not watching on TV, Tom, but it felt like, I mean, it was, you couldn't tell how many people were there on TV, but it was loud. Sure. And you're about the same number of people that were at any Iowa, game against a G5, or I should say a mid-major team on the schedule. So that would be my only thing. I am curious. A couple people in the chat want to know about Fran's comments on the tee. I could probably guess what he said. He probably said something along the lines of, I can't talk about that, Tom. But Tom,
he didn't really have anything to say. He just said Owen played better after the technical.
Okay. Well, fair.
And that's true.
And I know you guys have been around Fran long enough and covering this team long enough to know what he's going to bite on and what he won't. But the comment, obviously it looks better in a win, so it's easier to not be so critical. But having Owen Freeman go to the bench for like 8 minutes in that first half could have proven to be costly. Now, thankfully, the guys around him kind of picked it up. But I do think I made the comment before you came on, Tom, this team is built in a way that I believe there are going to be games where he may have to just violate his own rule book and keep Owen out there. But it didn't cost him tonight. Any comments there on the two fouls?
And one thing he did say was that yesterday in practice, Owen was pretty gassed because he was coming back from the illness. So he didn't know if he would give him more than 20 minutes tonight. So in some ways, that sitting in the first half was beneficial to him, because then he could play more in the second half and not potentially feel winded. Although I think his adrenaline was kicking in today too.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming up the illness, he's back in his hometown. He just turned 20 years old. What was Fran's overall tenor in the press conference? I'm guessing really thrilled. I mean, he's always going to have good things to say about the opponent, but this just felt like a big win. And one, who knows how big of a win this is in March, but to avoid a loss on a de facto home court, although it is going to count as a neutral against what we'd consider, I know they're playing in the West Coast Conference now, I guess, but this is Washington State, and it's a big first big game of the year. Just Fran's overall takeaways from tonight.
Yeah, I think he felt like it was a really good, solid win, and I asked him about weathering some adversity for the first time this year in a real sense, where they got pushed a little bit, and being able to come out the other end with a victory is a big deal. I mean, that they got pushed, and they responded. They did some things that I think are very encouraging. The extension of the defense, I thought, really showed that they just don't have to be a half court man or zone team. They can extend their defense and make plays off of that. They did a better job on 8, I thought, in the second half, trying to slow him down, because he was a handful. I mean, every way he was getting at him at one-on-one or off screens, off picks. He was just, he was a handful in that first half in particular, and finished, I think, with 27. But this was just a solid win for Iowa, and they also did something you don't see too often, which is weather bad free throw shooting in the first half and finally make 10 of 10 down the stretch, which you don't see all that often. Usually when the free throw shooting goes bad, it just stays bad the whole game. And And they made their shots down the stretch. Peyton, Price, Owen made some big free throws as well.
Turnovers, another big story. They had 10 in the first half, and second half had just 3. So that's very unorthodox for a Fran McCaffrey coach team. But it was interesting. Jess Settles made a comment. I don't know if you caught this, Kyle, but Jess made an interesting comment during the broadcast that in practice, if I heard him correctly, in practice, they've kind of had more of a propensity to turn the ball over preseason this year more than in past years. Did you catch that comment that Jess made?
Yeah, I heard that. I don't know if it was exactly what you're saying, but something in practice about turning the ball over.
So is that more of a result, Tom? Do you think of is Brock Harding just kind of being a risk taker, or what do you interpret that to be? Obviously, they cleaned it up in the second half.
Yeah, I know they've had some. They've been concerned about the turnovers in practice and taking care of the ball, and it's something they've got to continue to work on. And it's not just the point guards; it's also other players making mistakes. And but I think they're coming along. They're making steps. They're making strides and getting more comfortable with each other. And you saw that, I thought, in the second half in the previous game, and I think we saw that second half tonight, where they just continue to get a little bit better every time out.
Maybe I can ask you this question, Tom, because somebody told me that you're Brock's father, or you're his. I think you said that, right? You were joking, but
I was joking. That's what somebody on the message board said, and it was your son, and I'm like, well,
I don't want you to talk against your own son, Tom, but is it fair to speculate that maybe there should be a battle there for who's starting at point guard? Is it fair?
I don't think it really matters who starts. I think it matters who finishes and who plays more minutes. I think people get too caught up in the who's starting thing. I really do. I just think, would you rather be starting or be out there the last 5 minutes of a game?
Well, it's apparent that Drew Thelwell doesn't care because, and that was another comment that was made during the broadcast that, and I haven't heard Fran say this in a press conference, or maybe I've missed it, but that Drew's kind of just, hey, put his head down, and when he didn't win the starting job, it didn't really affect him at all. And he's a vet. He's a vet, Tom. How big is it to have a guy like that? I know we talked about the winningest player in Morehead State history, but the dude's got some serious experience. None of this rattles him.
And whether or not the whole starting thing matters to the fans, like, it's important too what the player feels. Like, if he's the type of guy that's not bothered by it, others might be.
Yeah, and I don't get the sense. I just talked to him a few minutes ago, and I don't get the sense that it bothers him a whole lot that he's not starting. It's just he just wants to win. That's all. He's just about winning games. And frankly, I think Brock will help Owen get off to good starts. Just they're comfortable with each other, and that will help him, I think, tend to get off to better starts. But Brock's got to be better. He does. He's got to take care of the ball better, finish plays better. But I think he will. And I think they'll continue to. It's a good problem to have, where you've got two guys that can play the position, and there's going to be nights where Brock's better than Drew, and so on. I mean, that's just how this game is.
I wonder if this comment is coming in from, is it Ghana? Because can you read this, Tom? I don't know how you say this, but apparently Bambara, is that the language over from
Don't know.
Home nation? Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. Ethnic group of West Africa: Mali, Ghana, Guinea, Burkina Faso, and Senegal.
Yeah. Maybe they're from Mali, I believe. So
from Mali. Very cool. Tom, anything else that stood out from Fran? Obviously, they get a home game against Ryder, and then you take the trip up to, down to Kansas City. And that should be another challenging one, probably a step up. I think Utah State probably at least projected preseason to be a notch above what Wazoo was projected to be.
Yeah, I think that'll be the first, even more significant test down in Kansas City in about a week. So that's going to be fun to see what they can do in that situation, in that game.
Final question from Basketball Rock says, where were the cheerleaders and pep band? Is that a dumb question? It's not a dumb question, but I mean, are there cheerleaders and pep bands for neutral site games normally, Tom?
Not all the time.
Okay.
But I'm kind of surprised they didn't just ship them over, but maybe they were at the soccer game or something. I'm not sure.
Well, Tom,
I don't know why they would have a pep band at a soccer game, but who knows?
I'm assuming you're like within walking distance of the arena, right?
I wish. The Harding. I saw Brock's parents tonight, and Scott Harding told me it was a 4-minute drive to the arena, and they were big smiles on their face.
Well, lots of reasons to be happy, and they didn't shoot the three well. Tom Payton didn't have his best performance. Price certainly didn't have his best performance. You got Josh Dix, it sounds like maybe banged up his wrist a little bit.
Yeah, it's a wrist. He hurt it in the first half. They don't seem overly concerned about it, but I'm sure they're going to check it out.
Okay. And Tom, I guess one last thing before I let you slide. And sure. I was going to say, I normally tell you to travel safely. I'll still say that because you're going across town. Not from Iowa City to the Quad Cities. You heard the other day, I asked Fran the question about Chris Taggio. What's your take on that? You and I have not had conversations off the air about it, but game one and, haven't played since. Is he hurt right now? I mean, I didn't think there was any sense of playing him this year.
I think what I was told was he was dealing with concussion issues. So that's what's going on. So I wonder if he's just going to end up finding a way to a red shirt.
Okay.
There's just not minutes for him.
But he's going to have to play more, right? He's got to be hurt because he already played week game one.
It's hard to play 11 guys. They're playing 10. It's hard to play 11. Just is.
Yeah. I thought it was odd that he played it all against Commerce. If you're going to play him again in the exhibition, unless he wasn't available, right? I guess that's. So, anyways, Tom, travel safely home across town, and
you bet.
We'll talk to you next time. Appreciate the time, sir.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Tom. I've got some stuff for you here, Cory, because I was just, while you're talking to Tom there, because we had a comment about the box score of that Wisconsin-Arizona game. I'm going to read you some stuff. This is one of the most wild box scores I have ever seen in my life. Arizona took 74 shots to Wisconsin's 52 because they had 31 offensive rebounds. Arizona did. 31-5 in the offensive rebounding category. And there were 62 fouls in the game, with Wisconsin shooting 47 free throws to Arizona's 40. There were 87 free throws taken in this game. Absolutely nuts. Arizona out rebounding Wisconsin 59-32 and still losing.
Yeah, let's go ahead and we'll go ahead. And by the way, Brandon says in the chat, he says that he was at the soccer game, no pep band. So, but that's fine. Before we get to James, who is our next caller, I'll go ahead and throw this up just so people can see what we're talking about. Let's see here. Share my. Still feels like I've just started using this software, and then I guess James got upset because he just left. So, okay, here it is. So here's the final. This is official now. 103-88. Wisconsin. Who is this woman? Is this a woman here staring me in the face?
It's an advertisement.
Okay, I don't care about capital rise and propriety. Okay, so Arizona 88, Wisconsin 103. What an odd score.
Yeah.
Right? These are, especially Wisconsin's known for their defense, even under Greg Gard. And you mentioned, the number of, you got Arizona shooting 37.8% from the field, 17% from three, and they scored 88.
And they only shot 70% from the line, too. They didn't shoot a high percentage. They just took a million free throws.
How did they get to? Yeah, they got 40 free throw attempts. That's fascinating. And they
62. I wonder how many players fouled out or got in foul trouble, because 31 fouls a team.
We've missed the most startling stat on this list. Arizona, this is how they shot such a low percentage and still scored 88. They had 52 rebounds to Wisconsin's 28.
Oh, that was different to what Google was saying. Google has it at 59-32. I wonder why that's different.
ESPN's got it at 52-28, and Wow.
I've got 32 or 31 offensive rebounds. What does ESPN have for offensive rebounds? 24. Okay, so that's the discrepancy.
I don't know where Google's getting its information, but 103-88. Wisconsin's now 4-0, upsetting the 9th-ranked Arizona Wildcats. And as you can see here, now wins over Holy Cross, Montana State, App State, and Arizona. Only beat Montana State by 12, Holy Cross by 24, but they pound the Wildcats by 15, put up a $103 on them. Very interesting. So they get the win in their Final Four reunion game. So we'll be interested to get Coach Close's perspective on that Wisconsin team when he joins us here next week. Okay, a couple things in the chat. Our phone line just opened up, so if you want to call, there is a StreamYard link. I'll throw it back up in the live chat again, but the number to call in is 515-635-1601, 515-635-1601. Todd says he was pretty sure he spotted Bert, a.k.a. Ryan, in the crowd on BTN. I didn't see Ryan over there, but may have been, right? I believe Ryan resides in Illinois, one of our regular callers. Jacob says still only beating Wazoo by 10 when they're only returning one person from last year is kind of sad. They're the only team we beat by 10, but that's what we should expect when Peyton is 2 of 10 from 3. So interesting. Jacob kind of sees it a different way. Mark says, I see Wazoo winning the Pac-12. Well, I think it's comment there.
Yeah.
And John says, well, they beat Bradley by 17. Well, what is Bradley, right? Decent Valley program. Yeah. Let's go to our next caller. We got James here. James, welcome.
First off, Cory, I'm tired of you disrespecting the MVC like that, man. Come on, bro.
Bradley, where is Bradley projected to finish? Do we know?
Not that high, like middle.
Preseason. Let's look this preseason poll.
If I remember, because you and I was second. I know you and I was second.
Oh, Bradley is preseason favorite, Kyle.
Are they one? I knew you and I second, though. You and I was second, though. In that.
Wow.
Bradley is picked as and they're overwhelmingly number one.
Yeah.
Huh.
But I mean, you and I just lost last night to Wichita State by 5. So I don't know how much better what Wichita State would do playing against Washington State, if that makes sense. But
here, let's go ahead and we might as well. Can we put this up on the screen? No, I can't. I'll work on that. We'll get this, but I want to show everybody. That's interesting. I didn't know because I looked at Wazoo's. I didn't study a bunch of Wazoo film before this game, but I did see that win over Bradley. I thought, okay, middle tier Missouri Valley Conference team, but that's interesting that they're projected to Missouri Valley.
Drake also lost like everybody because their coach went to West Virginia, so I think that shifted how the whole MVC,
the whole outlook for the conference
was planning to play now, if that makes sense, because he left and then everybody left the whole school, so they have like everybody new in the whole roster. But no, I was gonna say, but first off, I'm kind of gonna rip Fran for something that really did take me on from the first half, and I know we won, but you know me, I'm a coach. I nitpick little things.
Doesn't matter. You can go for it.
They ran the same play at least 5 or 6 times for Cal Meeks, where they ran a double stagger screen, and he kept doing the same thing every time, and nobody, not even the players, adjusted. Like somebody on the court at least adjust to it. I'm not even saying he has to adjust to it. Somebody on the court has to adjust to it. If you're doing the same thing 5 times, you would adjust to it.
You're going to watch him run around the screen and help late 5 times in a row.
Either run around and you help him late, or you ran through the middle and then nobody would do nothing when you ran right through the middle of it. Like, what are you guys doing? You got to. And the one time Owen didn't even slide over. If Owen would have slid over, he wouldn't have got past him. But Owen didn't slide over. Just let him drive right past him. Like, what are you guys doing?
I'm not going to try to defend him, even though I got the Super Fran shirt on, because on-ball defense, and again, this is why I go back to individual athletes. I know some people will downplay this, but if Fran's not going to hone in on good team defense and disciplined team defense, instead he's going to fall back on the whole mixing it up theory and motto, if you will, then better get guys who can be good individual defenders. And I think Josh Dix is a good defender, not a great one, a good defender. Drew Thelwell, Seydou Traore, because of their physical traits, have potential to be really good defenders. I thought Tony Perkins was a pretty good defender because he was a good athlete, right? But they don't have very many good athletes, and they have good length, and that can help. I think Cooper Koch could end up being a good defender, maybe, but he's not there yet, and he's not big enough yet. So, by the way, this is also a concern. I know it's been mentioned, but OS for Hawks brings up the free throw shooting. For the game, Iowa was
18 27.
So it looks a little better. A lot of those numbers, those makes came late.
Yeah, they made their last 10 in a row.
Yeah, if you look at first half stats here, they were 6 of 13, below 50% in the first half.
But I'm also going to rip Fran. I'm also going to give him credit where credit is due as well, because like that's what you do, right? Like him putting those guys in, him switching the defense to the trapping whenever they got cross half court, especially Calmees. When Calmees cross half court, they trapped him a lot of times, and that started changing the aspect. He threw a couple over the guy's head, threw him out of bounds, and then there was a couple turnovers out of it too. So that did change the game as well. So I'm going to give him his credit for that. But that first part, I feel like if he toned that first part down a little bit, maybe the game wouldn't have been as close, or we could have went on a bigger run, if they didn't keep letting him get to the rack every time. That was what more my point was, right? Like they ran the same play 5 times and nobody did anything about it.
The frustrating thing about it too is not only are they running the same play every time, but who else on the team proved that they could score tonight? Like
nobody.
Nobody proved they could do anything besides Calmees, and they just let Calmees do what he wanted to do, possession after possession.
Watts made a couple of shots in that second half, and ended up with a double-double. But
not at the point where they're running all those plays for Calmees. I mean, at that point, nobody had anything going. It was just him.
Well, then you've seen it too. Like it was like he just looked like he was just doing whatever he wanted to. Like he was like picking apart. Like if he went through the middle of the stagger, he was gonna get to the rack. If he went to the outside of the stagger, he's still getting to the rack. I'm like, what? I just didn't understand it. It was really frustrating me because I was just like, guys, try to stop it at least, right? Even slide in front of him. If you slide in front of him, at least has to change his direction, and maybe somebody can slide over and help you, right? But nobody even slid in front of him. They just let him get there.
Yeah.
Well, he's a quick, athletic guard, and Iowa's had problems staying in front of quick, athletic guards for years, and that's why
maybe put your quick, athletic guard.
Maybe put Thelwell though. Like they didn't put Thelwell until later after that happened. Maybe if you put Thelwell in when those staggers were happening, he could have gotten in front of him before those staggers. So I didn't see that either, and I was confused about the rotations a little bit early, at least for sure.
Y'all know I have a lot of respect for Tom Kert. Him and I are going to disagree at times. I don't think you can just say it doesn't matter who starts. I don't think that's a fair statement to make. There's a reason why, like, coaches decide who starts. If it didn't matter, then you just put a bunch of guys' names in a hat and draw them out. It does matter. It may not matter to the extent that some people think it does, but if one guy is clearly better than somebody else, he's going to start, right?
Yeah, but also
I feel like I'm just saying.
Yeah. No, but I agree. It was a good win. It's a win you definitely needed. You can't lose that game. And from what I heard, Washington State was picked top of the WCC. I know the WCC is not great in the back half of the WCC. No, obviously it's Gonzaga, it's St. Mary's, right? But like the back half of the WCC is always never really good, right? It's always top loaded with those two, really. And it's really Gonzaga, but it's really Gonzaga. But St. Mary's sometimes is okay, at least enough to be a little competitive here and there. Maybe not Gonzaga-wise, but they're usually a bubble team, kind of NIT team, so I'm going to give them a little bit of credit.
Just so people are aware, this is what I was talking about. Here is the preseason poll in the Missouri Valley Conference. And the reason I'm showing that is because you see the overwhelming number one pick in that conference was Bradley. 46 out of 49 first place votes. And this is a Wazoo team that knocked off Bradley here a few days ago. So this is something that, again, I don't know long term if it will mean anything, but
if they make the tournament, if Bradley makes the tournament like they're projected to off of this thing right here, then that's a better win, obviously.
Potentially. And Missouri Valley sometimes is one of those leagues that could maybe vie for 2 bids if it, like Drake, when they were had like 1 loss deep into a season. And it's hard to get 2 teams in, but
especially.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things that if this pans out the way that the pollsters would have, projected it to pan out, then Wazoo had a good win going into tonight. And this is, in spite of the crowd, this is what's kind of sneaky about this, Kyle, because you wonder how much does the committee, the NCAA tournament committee, look at where this game was played, even though it was played on a neutral site? You wonder, do they look at the fact that it was played in Moline? James, what do you think on that? I don't
know. Obviously, I feel like you look at the crowd, though.
Well, it's definitely the net doesn't look at that. The net's still going to measure it as a neutral site win, even though it's a de facto home game.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying, like, schedule. let's manipulate the net as much as possible and schedule neutral site games in Moline. If you can get good teams to come play you, you're playing a home game on a neutral site.
For sure. And I also agree with you on the extreme part. One thing I have a question with is, and I know Tom Kert said this, they have to pay for it. Don't they own it? Because I thought they built it for volleyball specifically. So I think the University of Iowa owns the Extreme Center.
That's a great question. I don't have.
I'm 90% sure they built it for volleyball specifically because they couldn't get enough people to the games in Carver, so they built it specifically for volleyball. If I remember hearing that right, I don't know if I.
Yeah, I would say that's a question I could find the answer to by a simple email. So maybe I'll pursue.
I don't remember if I heard that right, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened. And my thing is maybe not even do a couple games. You can at least do one game. They're like one small game. They're like a Texas A&M Commerce or a Ryder, and play that there, and you can get a bigger number. And maybe at the end of the day, that could maybe make the team more interesting. Of like, just play one of those games. Not even all the games there. You can play one of those games there still and kind of do it like somebody said, like the Penn State situation where they play one game at the Palestra or whatever. Obviously not the Palestra. Obviously it's not even close to that, right? But like I'm saying like that kind of thing, where they play one game at the Palestra or however many games they play at the Palestra. We can kind of do the same thing. Maybe play one there at least. Like just pick a game out.
But you do want, don't you think it's intriguing that they scheduled, like this is the most obvious home away from home venue, but don't you think it's intriguing that this team scheduled a game in Moline, a game in Sioux Falls, and a game in Kansas City? It almost makes me think, maybe I'm not the only one thinking, how can we manipulate the net? What I was saying, Kyle, before you rudely
Wi-Fi issues
is, here's what's brilliant about scheduling these games in Moline is you're getting credit for a neutral site game.
Yes.
Home crowd.
I was going to ask, I know maybe this is a very dumb question, but if they put it at Extreme, is that still a home game?
No, I do believe that when they played at Penn State at the Palestra, wasn't that still considered a road game?
Yeah.
So I think that, I don't know how that works. That's a great question. If there's
is there a mileage cutoff?
Yeah, exactly. Moline is a great one. Like I say, maybe they're thinking about this already and they're just not talking about it. They scheduled in Sioux Falls, they scheduled in Kansas City, and they scheduled in Moline. Perhaps there's thought to, hey, we don't have to schedule great teams. We'll schedule some decent teams on neutral
sneak
site.
A couple of quad 2 wins out of neutral sites. Also, and the women did it too with Des Moines too. Like that's another that was brought up earlier. Des Moines is another great option where there's a big Hawkeye fan base.
Yeah,
but another question, Kyle. I don't know if you know, did Iowa build the Extreme Center? Doesn't Iowa own the Extreme Center? Because didn't they build it for volleyball though?
I think they maybe played a role in it being built, but I was looking it up while Cory and Tom were talking about it. They don't own it.
I didn't know if they did.
It's leased out to the volleyball and wrestling and whoever else and it's the Heartlanders.
I would think there's got to be a way.
Yeah,
there is definitely a way. There's definitely.
There's the way you could play at least. Like I said, there's a way you could play at least one game there for sure.
James, make it a 5-game-a-year package, where you say, okay, James got upset. 5-game-a-year package where you just schedule 5 games there, and hey, I don't know how many thousand you have to pay, but make it work, and it'll be a better environment. Now, maybe it's not going to help you as it relates to quality of wins, but it's a better experience, and perhaps it generates some excitement from the fans, and maybe that would translate back over to Carver for the bigger games. I don't know. I'm just spitballing this.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, it's definitely interesting choice, and obviously I don't know even if that's even on the radar, but it's definitely something to think about, think and consider. And obviously you want the turnout like you get for the women, obviously, but unfortunately we don't get that for the men. But
I like this comment, John.
John wants me to ask some yes/no questions next week on Zoom. Hey, it doesn't matter what questions I ask. If Fran wants
to yes or no
question, he's going to answer.
You gotta keep asking until you get the yes or no, though.
You think you've ever said anything in the past that's irritated Fran? That he's heard?
Not that he remembers.
Okay.
Not that
also,
you just think he treated everybody that way. I mean, it was consistent.
No, I'm not going to make. No, in no way am I making that about me. That's just he was in a bad mood when he got there. Like he just was, and I've said it. I don't think there's any secret about that. If he shows up to a press conference, he ain't in a good mood. He ain't gonna be a real talkative. But
you know what? Yes, no question. You should ask him in the next presser.
What?
Are you in a bad mood?
Oh, that would go over real well, Kyle. Hey, don't forget, maybe 9 years ago with the Adam Woodbury eye poking thing, and somebody in the media, I won't say who, somebody asked him, "How does this keep happening?" And he said, "Next question, ask an intelligent question." And then I'll give Mike Halas, who I believe, does he work for the Gazette? Mike Halas said, well, why is that not an intelligent question? Great follow-up from Mike. Great follow-up. And Fran's response is because I said so. And Fran got a lot of pushback and was accused of being a bully on the national stage. And I'm not one of the people that said that, but that was the response. My point is, if Fran doesn't want to answer something or he thinks something is not an intelligent question, he'll say it. He may get criticized for it, but that's just Fran. Whether you love him or you hate him, that's just Fran.
Yeah.
No, but like I said, it was a good win, and I think the 10 points is bigger than, not that we think, obviously, but like bigger than I thought was going to happen, right? I thought it was definitely be a wide wire, and obviously it probably should have been wide wire, though. I think the only reason it's really 10 is because of free throws, right? But like at the end of the day, when you're looking at it, you look at a 10-point win. You don't really look at, oh, they won 10 points because they won by 10 because they hit 10 free throws in a row. You know, like at the end of the day, that's not really how people look at it, you know? Unless you're like us and we follow the game actually know that we won because we hit 10 straight free throws. If you're looking at it from an outside perspective, inside, you just see a 10-point win, if that makes sense. But
yeah, again, maximize the net point differential metric and got to win a neutral court against a team that could end up being maybe vying for a tournament spot. Again, it's so hard to, you know, I heading into this game, I kind of forgot Wazoo didn't have a P5 home. I kept calling them a Power 4 team. There is no Power 5. It's Power 4. And it came at the expense of two major programs in Wazoo and Oregon State. So,
yeah.
Anyways.
But it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, Ryder should be an easy one. And hopefully Josh takes his help. But if not, I think we'll have an issue with Ryder, obviously, with him or without him, obviously. But you want him healthy, get a little bit of run back. I don't think you have to play him a lot. If he is banged up a little bit, you don't have to play him a lot. If he can play, because it's Ryder, I think it should be self-explanatory for that. But
get another game under the belt of Seydu, and I don't really know that you need to get another game under the belt of Traore. Hopefully you get some extended run from Cooper Koch, and I think Cooper and Seydu are the two people I'd like to see more of against Ryder. I mean, we saw plenty from both tonight, but let's give them some extended run.
And they also had some big moments. Obviously, Cooper, we didn't talk about as much, his numbers were good, but he had a big three in the second half, obviously, and he does have some big moments. He always seems in plays to have at least one or two moments where you're like, if you can get more of that, you know, or more consistency. And obviously he's a freshman, so I'm not like telling him, you know, go be consistent when you're two freshmen, you know, just step out of the court. You only played 3 games, but like you see glimpses of stuff that, like, you know, if the future can stick, if he can keep doing that in the future and keep being more consistent in the future, then you're like, okay, I like what I see, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. James, appreciate you being here, and I'm assuming we'll talk to you Sunday evening.
It depends on the time of the show, but it should be interesting, and hopefully we can get that one too. And
big one.
I hope you have a good time in the Nap Center and be safe. You know, it's Des Moines, you never know. But
yeah, Drake is not a great neighborhood. Thank you.
I know that's why I said. I know that's why I said that for sure.
But it's
that's why I said that. But
venue for a college basketball game. So
definitely is. But I enjoy you guys tonight, and it's weird not having football tomorrow, but at least I can rest easy knowing I don't have to stress over it tomorrow. So
absolutely, we'll talk to you this weekend, James.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Can I just address something in our chat here?
Sure.
Amanda commented about ticket prices at Carver Hawkeye and then said, I have a small family, or I have a family of 6. We won't be paying a small fortune to watch mediocre hoops. It is what it is. I'm looking at the listings for Ryder. Over half the tickets that are for sale for that game are under $10.
Now, are you looking at SeatGeek? What are you looking at?
Vivid Seats. So, I mean, there will be fees on top of that, but the fees will not go even to, I mean, now, they're $7 basically for fees.
Let me defend Amanda, though. Kyle, when you're sending 6 people to a game and then you're having to pay for Carver cones and all that, you know, that does add up.
Well, it does, but the ticket prices are not the reason why the stadium's not selling, because I can get 6 tickets for a grand total of $18 plus fees right now. They're $3 each. There's listings for $3 each. Multiple listings for $3.
Well, I guess that's my point why I keep bringing up the extreme idea, because I saw Iowa State, somebody posted a picture of their crowd the other night, and it was, you know, this is a top 10, maybe a top 5 Iowa State team, and it was bare. And I'm like, well, now they sell out a lot, and they're going to be packed in there a lot. But some of those really crappy games, quote unquote, it's going to be hard to get people in no matter what. Even if you let students in free and give away a hot dog filled with nacho cheese. I mean, people aren't going to show up to watch Iowa play A&M Commerce.
No, they're not.
I mean, somebody corrected me the other night. Well, it's not A&M Commerce anymore, Corey. Get your facts straight. It's Eastern Texas A&M.
That's the point. Nobody knows who these people are.
Don't even know who they're playing.
No. They're playing South Carolina Upstate.
Yeah.
Who is South Carolina Upstate?
South Carolina Upstate. Oh, yeah, USC Upstate.
Yeah, USC Upstate, yeah.
Isn't that your alma mater?
No.
They're Division I. You were NAIA.
NAIA, yes, correct.
All right. Mark says, Corey, did you see what happened near the end of the game when two Washington State players ran into each other, fell down? Their coach was yelling about a no call. I missed what happened. I believe that was the play where Traore also kind of stumbled over them. I didn't see a foul, but I wasn't locked in on those guys falling down. Kyle, did you see anything there?
That was incidental contact. They were just, they ran, it was mostly the two of them getting caught up with each other, but there was no foul there. It was incidental contact. Just as a side note, not looking at Ryder now, looking at Northwestern opening conference game, you can go to that game for $8. So people that are in the chat, please, if you're interested in going to the games, you can do it for a reasonable price, and it's good. I'm going to try to go to as many as I can go to, as long as if they're going to stay at that price, I'm going to be there. So,
but I also don't blame fans.
No, I don't either, but
not going, especially if the team is not fun to watch, because it's an entertainment business.
Yeah.
And I think in some circles, they would say they're always fun to watch because they're up tempo. But I don't like watching a team that doesn't defend. And there have been times where France teams don't defend.
Yeah, absolutely.
This was a fun game to watch tonight. And Iowa didn't shoot the three ball well. They finished for the game. Iowa was
31% or something.
8 of 25. Now, here's the other thing. We got to call a spade a spade. You talked about Wazoo. Didn't have much offense past Nate Calmes. They were 5 of 28. They were worse from three than Iowa was. Iowa was -5 on rebounding. That's going to be a continuous storyline.
Not to mention that Wazoo had 18 turnovers. So they essentially, between 3-point shots and turnovers, wasted like 40 or 35 possessions. Like,
they were as bad as Iowa was with 3-point shooting and turnovers. Wazoo was worse. And a lot of those were unforced. Now, some of them were forced, but a lot of them were unforced. And again, Iowa was -5 on turnovers, on rebounding.
Yeah.
And, give credit to the defense for holding them to 39% and 18% from three. But I think there are going to be other teams that just shoot better, even with the defense. That goes without saying. So, T. Hink brings up, hey, they're 75th in defensive rating now on KenPom. That's great.
Yeah.
But we need a bigger sample size. So far, so good there. And
if they stay 75th, we'll probably, at the end of the season, we'll probably be happy, right? If they stay 75th. Like to get up in the 60s. I think if they get up in the 60s, you're definitely happy.
You'd have to think the offense is going to be top 20. You'd have to think, because they
usually 25th right now. So
25th. So by the end of the year, that's a good one. I still think it's going to be very dependent on Owen Freeman staying out of foul trouble and staying available. But folks, be sure you hit that like button if you're here and you've enjoyed the show. We're here each and every post game. We're going to get Coach Gary Close, former Iowa assistant, back with us here very soon. And Kashina Alexander will be with me for women's basketball post game on Sunday. And of course, if you haven't done this, be sure you call our good friend Brad Van Meter and his team down at State Farm in Des Moines. Get a quote on insurance, 515-256-6480. Visit his website, bradvanmeter.com. Our friendly Hawkeye fan and insurance agent Brad Van Meter down on Fleur Drive in Des Moines, 515-256-6480. The Hawkeyes defeating the Cougars of Wazoo tonight, 76-66, the final. If you are interested in donating to the show to support the cause, you can do so by means of Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, etc. As you see on the bottom ticker, it's all available in the description. And Lisa, thank you for being here. Says she enjoys how the Hawks played down the stretch. Yes, please hit that like button. Thank you, Lisa, for being one of those that has taken the time to scroll down a couple inches and hit that like button. It does very much help. And again, I'll be joined by Kashina Alexander, former All Big Ten guard Kashina Alexander. It will not be immediately after the game against Drake, folks, because I'll be down in the Knapp Center. So we'll have a delay. but we're planning on a prime-time post-game show, barring some unforeseen changes. But stay tuned to my social media, and we'll schedule that as soon as we have confirmation on time. And, of course, the Iowa men, the men's basketball team, will be back on the court Tuesday to play Ryder. Tip-off scheduled for 7 p.m. Central Time. It will be televised on BTN+. Let's give everybody a quick box score recap. If you are just joining us, the Hawkeyes with a 10-point victory led by none other than Owen Freeman, coming back home and scoring 21 points, along with 11 rebounds, in spite of missing a good portion of that first half. Played 29 minutes, 9 of 15 from the field, 3 of 4 from the free throw line. Peyton Sandfort struggled from the field, specifically from 3. He was 2 of 10 from 3, but made 6 of his 8 free throw tries, 6 rebounds, finished with 18 points. Brock Harding, 3 of 7 from the field. He drew the start again, 7 points, 4 assists, 3 turnovers, and a steal. His backup, Drew Thelwell, ended up playing less minutes than Brock. That is noteworthy. 19 minutes, but played down the stretch of that second half. 7 points, made a couple of huge threes, and had 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, 1 turnover, and a big block shot down the stretch for Drew Thelwell. We didn't talk about that. Cooper Koch off the bench, 14 minutes played, made a couple of big threes. That young freshman's going to be good. He's going to take some time to bulk up and continue to gain some experience along the way. 6 points for Cooper and 3 rebounds. Also drew a couple of fouls. Bryce Sandfort struggled mightily, did make 4 free throws. Those were his only points scored. He was 0 for 3 from the 3-point line. Ladji Dembele, there's an interesting one. We have not talked about Ladji tonight, Kyle. I just feel like he's in a bit of a funk. And there's could there be a potential claim to the idea of playing Traore over Ladji? I think that's a fair quip at this point. I mean, we'll see if that continues, that storyline. But Ladji played 21 minutes tonight, 5 points.
Well, maybe that saves Ladji too for when he does need to come in and play the small 5. Because that's one of his important roles on this team. I think he did a nice job in that interim when Evan Bronze was pulled out. Ladji was in at the 5 for a while.
And Iowa also won tonight in spite of just 2 points from Josh Dix, who also banged up a wrist in the second half. 23 minutes played for Josh, 2 points, 3 assists, 2 turnovers, 2 steals. That's not the type of consistency you want to see from him. Because the moment I think he's rounding into their most consistent player, he comes out with a night like tonight. So that's concerning, but hopefully just an off night. Traore at Seydou Traore with 5 points, had 4 rebounds, had a really impressive one where he basically grabbed the ball through 4 Cougars. And he was a really good rebounder at Manhattan, averaged over 8 a game. So that's going to really help Iowa, having him on the glass, played 22 minutes, and just thought he gives them great energy on the defensive end. And speaking of defense, 2 blocks for Seydou Traore. Evan Bronze also played 2 minutes in that first half, never saw the floor again. And that is your box score recap. Individual Hawkeyes there. The Hawkeyes shooting as a team, 42% from the field, 32% from 3, 67% from the free throw line. The Cougars shooting 39% from the field, 18% from 3, 75% from the line. But Iowa outpaced the Cougars at the free throw line, 27 attempts to just 12. The Hawkeyes also, and turnovers, they struggled in the first half, finished +5 in that category. And as far as paint, this is interesting. Paint points. Wazoo outscored Iowa 42-32, even though they don't really have a back to the basket type of score. But man, how many uncontested layups did we see at different points in this game for Nate Calmes, who finished with 27 points, was the leading scorer for the Cougars. The only other guy in double figures was Lajuan Watts with 11 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. And the Hawkeyes did outscore Wazoo on bench points, 23-8. Only 8 fast break points for Iowa. So interesting. Pace of play favored Wazoo. But, hey, win's a win. And even if it's ugly, it's early. Ugly but early, right? And as I said at the outset, all's well, it ends well with Drew Thelwell. So there's my
It's good to see those 2 guys come off. And good to get 23 points off your bench in general. But good to see those 2 athletic guys come in and contribute. I think it'll be interesting, like you said, to see Thelwell and Traore. I mean, if we're all going to acknowledge that those are your 2 athletic guys, why not get one of them in the starting lineup? I don't know.
think there's a claim for that. Folks, be sure to shop from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Man, I tried to mix the store and the storm thing together. From the Hawkeye of the Storm over on Spreadshop, and also share the show out on social media, because if you enjoy it, it's likely other people will as well. For Kyle Spence, I'm Cory Brada. Kyle, thank you for being here. And we'll be back. I'll be back with you Sunday for post-game coverage in the evening. Hawkeye women tipping off at 2 p.m. in the Knapp Center. Have a great night. Go Hawks. Your men are 4-0. The women are undefeated. Good times. Enjoy your open Saturday in Iowa football's final bye week. We'll talk to you Sunday.